was living in Christchurch in mid-1972, and interesting to recall, I had by now two small children. They were around about 2.5 and 1.5. I had gone over to Australia to present the paper that had developed out of the work that I did in Dunedin, as I said, funded by the Society. And I had also presented a paper at the Society conference in 1970, which happened to be in Christchurch. And when I arrived in Christchurch and was just sort of settling in with these two small children, I would get a call from Joan Durbridge and Margaret Draper. Joan was the overarching physiotherapist in chief, I think was the phrase, of the Canterbury Hospital Board. And Margaret was her deputy, I think, at that stage. And they rang me and said, would I be interested in doing something? Because I had a teacher's qualification and I suppose I'd become a bit visible. I got involved in the branch, which is always a physiotherapist to talk to wherever you might be in the country, and that was quite fun. But I resisted these weekly calls. Would I come and work, and I could do a few hours or I could do many hours, I could do whatever I liked, and week after week after week, each week I would get the phone call to see had I rethought it. Eventually in 1972 I decided that the children were able to be looked after in my own home for the morning, and I would work just from 9 to 12 at Christchurch Women's. I worked at Christchurch Women's for about 6 months, and I had a phone call from Dr. David Hay, who was a cardiologist based at Princess Margaret Hospital, who said that he would like to have a talk to me about setting up a cardiac rehab program in Christchurch, based at Princess Margaret. Well, the facilities were of course quite different and far less in many ways than that of the Dunedin setup. But I went and had a chat to him, and we slowly developed a decision to set up a program for cardiac patients. And I moved on to the staff of Princess Margaret, working from 9 till 1 with the children by this stage in kindergarten and able to be left easily at that age. We had variations on what I had done in Dunedin because we didn't have access to the same sorts of levels of gym input. By now, cardiac surgery had started in Dunedin, I think, and Christchurch patients were having to travel either to Dunedin, Wellington or Auckland for their surgery, which was a cause of great political, both political in the medical sphere and political in the political sense, of concern and competition between Dunedin and Christchurch. That contract, in inverted commas, had been awarded to Dunedin, I think it must have been around 71 or so, to set up the cardiac unit, and was of great concern to Christchurch people. We set up the unit. Many of the patients went to Dunedin for really what was just angiograms. There wasn't initially even that facility in Christchurch, and were found to be in severe straits with regard to the patency of the coronary arteries, and so would have been ideal for surgery. And there was huge upheaval set up in their lives. And so not only were we doing just the cardiac rehab program, but we also had to start looking at the pre-operative and post-operative care of that group of people who were being operated on in either Auckland, Wellington or Dunedin. And the criteria for where they would be would depend on whether they wished to go privately, the extent of their disease. Some of the more difficult ones were sent up to Auckland. The routine were going to Dunedin, and the preference from their families as to where they would prefer to have surgery. We got into some dire straits because, of course, informed consent was not an established principle in 1974-5 at all. But we felt strongly that we needed to give good information to these people pre-operatively, and we developed 1 or 2 good diagrams and pictures in glorious Technicolor. And I always remember going through this with one man, as I did with everyone, and the heavens broke, he became very upset about what was going to be done to the inside of his body and the pictures he had seen. And he and his wife marched into the head of the cardiothoracic department, who of course was Heath Thompson, married to Bunny, and complained vociferously about the preoperative care and attention he had received in terms of information in particular and the graphic, in inverted commas, details that he'd been exposed to. So we apologised profusely but continued to do exactly the same, which of course time has proved us to be right in doing. The cardiac rehab program I continued until I went back to teaching in 1977, and Nancy Grant, who had been involved with the Phoenix Club in Dunedin, took over that program in Christchurch.